Welcome to the Autism ADHD podcast. It's the place to be for neurodiversity affirming parents and professionals. I'm your host, Holly Blanc-Moses, the mom neurodivergent therapist. Here we chat about emotional regulation, mental health, social support, executive functioning, learning, and more, all aimed at empowering us to support kids and teens with compassion and understanding. I'm thrilled that you joined me today, and I've got some pretty exciting news to share with you. For those rock star therapists listening right now, I've created continuing education training that is tailor-made for you. Take a deep dive into cutting-edge strategies that you can start using today. The CEs you've wanted for so long are finally here. Go to hollyblancmoses.com/CE training and sign up. You are going to love it. The link is also available in the show notes. Now, if you are a parent or educator listening and you know a therapist or a psychologist that is passionate about supporting kids and teens, I greatly appreciate it if you could pass on this great news. Thanks so much again for your support, and let's get started. Welcome, Dr. Peyton Gemmell, to the Autism ADHD podcast. Peyton is an occupational therapist and founder of Like-Minded OT, where she specializes in supporting teen girls and women with ADHD. She supports clients in strengthening executive functioning skills, navigating sensory processing differences, and building sustainable daily routines. And we all need help with that. Her work focuses on practical skill development and environmental modification to reduce overwhelm and improve participation in school, home, and community life. There's a lot to it.
There's a ton there.
There's so much there. Parents, therapists, related professionals who support autistic and ADHDers, we're always talking about routines, morning routines, bedtime routines. This is hard stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I personally have not lived a day where routines were easy for me, not once in my life. And I know that my parents and I had some of our own things trying to get my life in some sort of order as I was growing up. And some of that has continued into adulthood, but I totally get it.
Right. You and I are coming from not only having the education and the professional experience, but also the life experience, knowing that this is hard. What might look like it should be easy is not. So today we're going to talk about just some tips about morning and bedtime routines. But before we get into it, I want to make sure that you and I chat about the frustration of the people that we work with. They're frustrated with themselves. They want to be able to do these routines. They don't want their parents to be upset with them. We also understand that parents feel this tremendous weight. Well, we have to get to school on time. If you forget this homework or if you don't do this, then you're going to get a bad grade on this. And then your assignments. I mean, there's just so many things. And then the bedtime routine. Sleep is different for neurodivergent people. You go to the doctor and they say, oh, just do a sleep hygiene plan.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yeah, plenty of times.
Not saying that's bad advice, but we can't stop there. What does that mean for your child or your client? A lot of us therapists have parents coming to us and saying the mornings are a nightmare and or the bedtime routine is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say, knowing on the front end, before you try any different approach or strategy, knowing that not one way in the same way over time is going to work. It's actually not. So
Right.
know that it is not, because that helps people decrease their frustration with their child and with the situation if they know that it is not going to always work in the same way.
Yeah, it's absolutely about building a toolkit. When you're building something, if we're going into this toolkit metaphor, if you're building a table, you might need a variety of different tools to get to your end result of having a table. And so if the goal is to have an improvement in your regulation and your success for some sort of morning and nighttime rhythm, then you need to have a variety of tools to pull from, because with neurodivergent brains, the same thing might not work week to week, depending on sleep, depending on how exciting that skill is. So we've all experienced trying something and it's really fun for a little bit because it's novel, but in a couple of weeks, it's not working the same. And so when we think about the skill of cognitive flexibility, so being able to pivot between different tools and be okay with something not working all the time, that can be very important here, because we're going to need some sort of morning rhythm for the rest of our lives. And so expecting the same tool to work from the day you implement it to the end of your life is unrealistic. And so really building a well-rounded toolkit so that even if something isn't working in the moment, you can pull for something else.
I love that. This is all good information. Which part of this worked? Maybe this part didn't, because being in the office with others or even being in their home, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the parts of our first approach is going to work. Backing up and looking at everything, and you tell me what you think, Peyton, where all of these things are pieces. When someone tells me morning routine or bedtime routine, I don't think of that as a whole. I think of that as parts.
As an OT, that's really something I love so much about our training, is that we are thinking about your skills and we're thinking about what does your environment look like? How is your sensory system receiving what's going on around you and how is it responding? What does the setup look like? How is your sleep? How are your mental health components going? How is your social support? There's so many things. I could sit here and list them for the rest of this podcast that to consider. And so expecting to get a good sense of all of them and nail down a strategy on the first try is a little bit unrealistic. Odds are the strategy will partly work and we can pivot from there.
Parents are already completely overwhelmed. They already feel so much pressure. And when they think, oh, yet another thing isn't helping, and that's what it feels like if they're already stressed before they even begin the morning routine. When I'm working with someone and they're concerned about their morning routine and bedtime routine, one of the most important tips is to literally follow it through. Because if we were to sit in the office and try to map it out, it's not going to be as good as if you follow through the morning and see each piece. What is the piece? Where is the piece? Who is around? What's harder? What's not? Again, the location of where they are in the moment. Do you agree about that as well?
I totally agree. That's why I see clients virtually, so that I can say, set up your phone, set up your computer, let's try it. And sometimes if you've, well, and this person has been living in their own body their entire life. And so oftentimes they don't see the same things in their own routine, or their parents don't see the same things in their child's routine because it's the only way that they've known. And so it can be really helpful to have someone else watch and understand the components of all that's going on.
We do things automatically. We don't even think about all the parts to everything. Before we hit record, we were just talking about laundry.
Yeah.
It's so many parts, and
Mhm.
not all parts are as hard as other parts. I love the idea of being able to see the routine play through. That's a really big tip for people, because there's a lot of steps that are lost. And when we don't know all the steps, we are going to be missing important information that we could use to help those morning and bedtime routines.
Absolutely. And I think what you kind of got into it a little bit, but the visualization of the routine is so important, because with executive function difficulties, those higher level functions, it can be really challenging for neurodivergent brains to hold in all the information of what they're supposed to be doing and in what order. And so simply visualizing it, putting it on paper or putting it somehow, in a line of sight can offload just a little bit of that process, enough to make it possible.
If I could make every single thing in the world visual, I would.
Absolutely.
You can't effectively make it visual if you don't know all the steps. Yeah, we talked about managing expectations. Not all the parts are going to work. They might work. You mentioned a week or two. Sometimes it's a day or two. It's a good idea to have more than one idea when parts of the other one isn't working. That's also going to decrease the stress of the parent and the child. Working memory and that processing, that's so important to have that visual. Shout out to all the ADHD women out there. We are forgetting things.
Yeah.
And then we're getting frustrated with ourselves. And then we're trying to get our child ready as well, for a morning or more than one child. I can't tell you how many times like I'll get in the driveway and, oh, okay, I don't have my readers. Well, I need them all the time. Taking your medicine in the morning. There are so many different parts to it.
So many little things that kind of happen naturally for other people, or so I hear. It's never happened to me, but that just don't. And so there's a piece of almost self-grace that needs to happen too, of understanding my brain does work differently. That's an explanation for why it's hard, but that doesn't mean I can't build systems and skills to support myself. And so I think having the hope that things can improve, and also setting realistic expectations for it's never going to be as simple as I'm just gonna do it. It's gonna take a little bit more support, but it's totally possible.
It is possible. It absolutely is. Let's talk quickly about the environment.
Yeah.
Because environment is something we do not pay enough attention to. These are the details. What are the items that someone needs to complete a morning or bedtime routine? What's the timeline? How much help do they need? What parts are they avoiding?
There's a few things that I think about when I think about the environment. One is, like you said, where are the items located? If they are scattered all over the home, then that's more transitions the brain has to go through to get from place to place, from thing to thing, and more opportunities for distraction in between. And so really localizing the items required for the routine. And if that means that there is a version of the morning routine in an upstairs bathroom and a version that can happen downstairs with duplicate items, so be. If that saves running up and down the stairs, that is completely worth it in my view. So that's one component, is like, where are the things located that you need, and minimizing the amount of other stuff going on. So minimizing the extra hair products. If you know your child needs a detangler and a hairbrush and a ponytail holder, there does not also need to be other hair products and this one thing you got from a free sample sitting there and all of that, because that's just extra visual input that they don't need to make sense of right now. And kind of the second component that I think of is the sensory system. So lighting and sound matters, especially in the morning and at night, before the system has had a chance to regulate in the morning, or by the nighttime when their sensory system potentially is just overstimulated, overflowing, and can just not take extra sound, extra sight. That's just one example of a sensory profile. Some people have other ones where they need more input, but that's a podcast for another time. But the sensory environment, what does it look like? What are your child's preferences? And really making sure that their morning or evening routine is set up and their sensory system as regulated as possible before you're expecting them to go through a challenging series of tasks.
There's so many variables. When you're finding something is working, knowing that with a neurodivergent brain, often you are going to forget it exists. So then we're talking about the sensory component of changing the color, changing the images.
Right.
When my oldest was younger, it's funny, these things don't have to be fancy, everybody. I found these little sticks, and then I put a little sticker at the top, And then I would have a piece of paper towel holder and I would cut it and I would color it and I would put the next thing, like what that is. And then the stick would then move to the next thing he needed to do. So,
Yeah.
so many different options. You have to be creative in
Right.
trying to figure it out. You mentioning the steps, that's one of the first things that I ask. Do they have to go up or down steps to do this? We need
Yeah.
to make it as simple and streamlined, like a roadmap. How
Right.
can we get this to be as simple as possible? And sometimes is we need to brush the teeth downstairs, whatever bathroom is closest to that front door, what door you're leaving. And they need a visual body double? Do you need to do it with them so they can see it? Do we need to have a fun song on at the same time? So many different things
Yeah.
to think about.
Yeah. And a few like quick tips from me on the in this realm of these visuals and other supports. One of my favorite things, and that has been successful for some of my older teen girls, is having two baskets for your morning routine and maybe the same or different baskets for evening routine. But you have two baskets. One is full of all the components that you need. So there's a hairbrush in there, toothbrush, toothpaste, hair tie, and maybe like a moisturizer, whatever it is. The other basket is empty. As the teen goes through the steps, you move them to the other basket until there's nothing in the original basket. And so that's a really cool way to visually track what the teen has done and what they still need to do. And then the next day they can go and just move them to back to the original basket. And so something as simple as providing the brain the reminder of where was I? What do I still have left?
You could even have a visual on the basket,
Right.
do and done,
Mhm.
post it with a binder clip. And then you
Yeah.
change out the colors of the post-it or whatever that looks like. Because when you forget one step, that could be very anxiety provoking for the child or the teen. Oh no, I forgot. Then they're starting their day off like this.
Right.
And it's really tough. I love that we're talking about all the creative ways that we can do this because every single person is different. What I like about going through the routine first is maybe there are extra steps that you don't need. Are there items on the sink, for example, that you're not actually using? So then they're just distracting.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that basket, you can clearly see what else is left in here
Mm-hmm.
and how do I move it over. And also, depending on what the person needs, they may need assistance from a parent at first. And then you can model it
Right.
for them.
Absolutely. And that's a skill that you can grow with that can have a lot of support where the parent is verbally cueing the transition from thing to thing that, you imagine in the future as they grow and move out or whatever it is, then they have their trusty baskets and they have, worked through the various support levels that can go with these. So that's just one example, but there's plenty of others. The key is
And
really
that's,
just offloading the mental information into something visual.
we're constantly thinking about how to fade support. So these are skills that our clients can use into the future. And what's so neat about this is we're helping them be more self-aware. We're helping them understand that things they can try can be changed and they can be mixed up a little bit, and that's okay. That's going to happen. And it doesn't make them feel bad about themselves. They carry so much shame around because things like this, which it sounds like it should be simple, getting ready in the morning or going to bed, it's not. Especially if you have a busy brain and every moment your thought is being hijacked, you can come back to, is that basket empty? And what do I need? The simple approaches are the ones that are going to be more likely to be used in the first place. Parents don't need extra things to do.
No, because often that means more executive function requirements of both of them. If the system is too complicated and we could, do a complicated system, we probably wouldn't need it in the first place, right? So the system needs to be easy to implement and initiate as well.
I also love the idea of meeting with that child to see what parts are harder than others because they may need more support in some of those steps. Maybe they're struggling with fine motor skills.
Mm.
Maybe they are walking past their bedroom where there's a Lego creation they've been thinking about, and then they get pulled in there. There are all these different parts. And when we find out what's easier and what's harder, we'll know where to provide more support and also when to pull back as well if they're feeling more confident about different parts.
Yeah, totally. And really, collaborating with the child or teen because they know their brain well, and just taking the time to ask them questions about how it's working and what is it, the time management, is it the bouncing all over the house, is it distractibility? Like it might be a combination, but which is it that you can really start with targeting?
I love that. Okay, Peyton.
Yes.
Where can my audience find out more about you and your services?
Sure. So my website is probably the best place to go. It's www.light, L-I-G-H-T, minded, mindedot.com. So that's www.lightminded.com just for more information about my work. And then I also offer free interest calls for people in North Carolina and Virginia. That's where I'm licensed. If you feel like the extra support would be helpful.
I know people are going to be reaching out to you because this is so hard, the routines.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's really just, I need someone else's eyes on my life to figure out where that gap is, or on my teen's life for that matter.
I also love that you provide support for moms and women as well, because we also need support.
Yes. There's so often a genetic component here. Entire families need these systems. So yeah.
Exactly. Fantastic. Okay. I hope that you come back on and see me. And you and I also talked about coming together to do a parent workshop. So we'll keep everyone updated on that as well. Peyton, I'm going to have the link to your website in the show notes. So everyone go down there and learn more about Peyton and her amazing services.
Well, thank you, Holly. It's been so wonderful chatting with you today. And I'd love to come back on. There's endless things that we could talk about, I think.
Absolutely. Endless things. And I'll talk to you next time.
Sounds great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, I greatly appreciate it if you could take a second to give it a 5-star review. With your positive feedback, I can continue bringing you free, valuable information. As an extra thanks to you for sticking around, there are special gifts waiting for you in the show notes. You'll find links to free resources on supporting neurodivergent kids and teens. So come on down to the show notes and get your free resources. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc-Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc-Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.